lived off of prior earnings for too long, and I went too far. It happens, right? You misestimate, not stay as vigilant as you need to, and next thing you're in trouble. And when you're unemployed, that can happen pretty fast. When you don't have an income and you can feel like a failure, feel like you've done something wrong, or sometimes you can feel like a victim.
Well, hey folks, welcome to How to Thrive in IT, your favorite podcast of all time. And if not, I kind of want to know about it. My name is DJ, I'm your host. And today I'm going to be playing a recording of something that was actually recorded in 2024, about a year and a half before publishing this out. So this is kind of a lost episode, but I thought there was a lot of good here that I wanted to share with you. So let's do this.
Today we're going to talk about getting hired. I am not, I repeat, not an expert in this. I do not know how to get you hired specifically. So this is not me giving you advice by any stretch. This is DJ sharing a couple of things to encourage you, and I hope that along with others collectively are able to take some advice and run with it. First things first. Let's say you are either in a situation where you are unemployed, underemployed, or just really need a change. There's some nuances here. And I've had some shifts in thinking about this myself, and I wanted to share these with you. I did record a video in January of 24 after something that happened with me that I want to share some of those kind of things. I'll have a link in the show notes about how to find that episode. But that was specific to tips on helping your network find work for you on LinkedIn, putting your network to work. So that is good stuff. But the reality is that when it comes to looking for work, there's some things I've been seeing lately and some things I've even fallen into the traps of myself. And so I wanted to make sure to, one, repeat some of the things that I said in that video, but also to give some encouragement and things I might have missed in that video, I guess you could say. So first things first, when it comes to doing a job search, that sort of thing, a lot of times there can be a lot of shame involved. Feel a lot of disappointment in yourself or the world around you or your industry. You can really feel, and this is something I get a lot of feedback on or hear people say, that they feel abandoned, that they feel like all the people they've helped are suddenly just not helping you, and they'll not ask for help because of that. When the reality is, a lot of times people don't know how to help. And you're ready for a harsh word that's spoken in kindness? They don't know how to help you because you haven't told them how to help you. It's a tough one, so I'm going to repeat it. They don't know how to help you because you haven't told them how to help. So the very first thing is to be willing to reach out for help, to say, I'm in need. That is a tough thing. Remember, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, but the IT industry is a very traumatic one. It's one that you're constantly facing adversity. People don't talk to the IT person when they're having a good day. This is the reality of our situation. You don't get the encouraging word all the time. What you'll get is the 3 a.m. call. You don't get the, hey, I just wanted to stop by your desk and tell you how great it is that I can log in from home. Sometimes you might get that. I hope there are people in your life that do that. I really do. But the reality is that's not the majority. And so we face a situation where we are forced to have some resilience, and we're forced to have some thick skin. When you are in a situation where you are looking for employment, that is not the time to have that thick skin. That's not the time to have your guard up. It's not the time to have your armor on. It's the time to be a little vulnerable, ask for the help, get people involved. And you're probably saying to me, DJ, what does that look like? Why would I get other people involved? I don't want to burden them. I don't want to make my problems their problems. That's silly talk. And the reality is, most of us are not professional job seekers. We don't do this for a living. Very few people that are like that. So when I say it's time to reach out for help and do that, it's not because you are lowly or anything like that. It's because this is not and should not be your primary skill set, is looking for jobs. If you are overly practiced in finding jobs, it might be time for a new profession. IT might not just be for you. We tend to be more in the long game here. So just keep that in mind. So anyway, we shouldn't expect ourselves to be good at finding jobs. If we are, a lot of times they're not the right jobs anyway. So the thing about this is if we have other people looking out for us, there's a couple things that does. One, it gets us emotionally detached from the situation. And honestly, I've had two different successes with LinkedIn on this. One is putting it out there saying, hey, I'm looking for some work and that sort of thing. I'm going to get into the nuances of this in a moment. And then people would respond, and sometimes in droves, of saying, oh, DJ, you should look at this. This might be a good position for you. And in my case, also, what I got recently was someone saying to someone else, hey, did you see the DJ is looking for a contract? He's got some time in February, March, and he's looking for some work to fill a gap. And that just happened to fit what this other person needed. So it was a referral. Now, had I not reached out and gotten that help, I probably would have found something eventually. But gosh, it can be stressful looking for that. And so having a network of folks that you can engage is huge. Absolutely huge. So don't be shy about that. I'll be honest, I don't always like using the word shy. It's a parlance or a culture that we say things like that. What I mean is to get over your timidity and to embrace the unknown a little bit. Well, we're going to talk about some tactics for this in a minute, but basically the first step really is to be willing to reach out for help and call that out. It doesn't have to, listen to me on this, please listen. It doesn't have to be public. It doesn't have to be a loud declaration on LinkedIn that I am open for work. Declaring you're open, it's like a megaphone thing. We got to tell you, I don't really see it being all that effective in our industry. I think there's so many people saying the same thing that you are just equivocated with everyone else. You're just part of the crowd at that point. I know a lot of people that only log into LinkedIn to say they're open for work. Wrong time to be logging into LinkedIn. The right time to be logging into LinkedIn is when you have work. Just put that out there for you. It is when you need to build the network the most, is when you don't. It's just that simple. So yeah, there's that. Anyway, there's some other pieces to this. And so I wanted to take a few minutes and talk through some of the things I talked about in the video tactically that I think are worth reiterating, worth putting out here, so you don't have to, I'll do the work for you so you don't have to do the work now. So,
okay, folks, I wanted to take a quick break and do our resource of the week.
Brings the heat, something new every week. Get ready to click and see something awesome for you and me. Resource of the week. Oh yeah, resource of the week. What will it be this week? Get ready to take a peek.
This week, I have a special for you. They didn't ask me to do this. I just felt like doing some folks a favor. I have been working with the folks at EG Innovations for a number of years now. And so I wanted to share a resource that they have on their website where you can actually go and get a free tier. There's no limit to the amount of the time that you can use this, but it is a fully functioning access to their monitoring solution, especially for end user computing workloads. But honestly, there's a lot you can do with this. You can monitor up to 3 applications that way, 50 concurrent users that are getting remote desktops or applications. Maybe you have a website on IS with a database and you want to monitor that, or maybe get some .NET applications and you want to look at what they're up to. There's a lot of different things you can do with EG Innovations. All you need to do is go to thrive-it.com/EG free. That's thrive-it.com/EG free. We'll get you hooked up. Just register, and yeah, you'll even get some support if you need it. They want you to be successful. Obviously, it's a great way to do that. Get some experience. And yeah, so thanks to my friends at EG Innovations for being this unannounced resource of the week. There you go, folks.
The other piece of this is to really be really specific. Sometimes we get overly formulaic, and when we're not wanting to bother people with our problems, sometimes we give shorthand answers. Sometimes we just say things because it feels like we've done something. We've accomplished something now. We've said the thing. We've done the thing. We've done our business. Well, let's say it what it is. You may not recognize this in your life. You may not think of it this way, but a good lot of people will just do a thing just to be able to say they did it, to reassure themselves that the reason they're unemployed is that they can't be employed, or the reason they're unemployed is because nobody's hiring. And by putting themselves out there a little bit on LinkedIn, it says, see, I told you so. Yeah, avoid that. What I really want to encourage you to do is to not do little posts, not telegraph that you're available for work, or I'm looking for a systems administrator job. That's not helpful. You know, there are lots of them out there that doesn't really tell me what I need to know to be a help to you. Help me help you. I've said this time and time again. I'll keep saying it. Help me help you. So the thing about this is that you need to be very specific. And what does that mean? That means that you need to describe the kind of work you want to be doing. And in fact, I would actively avoid job titles. And here's why. Many of the jobs in information technology will not match their job description. I see so many systems administrators out there that are actually engineers and architects and don't even know it because their company has placed a systems administration label on them. Don't do that. Don't sell yourself short. Just because you have a certain job title in the past doesn't mean you necessarily want to look for that in the future. So be specific about the kind of work you are good at, what you're passionate about doing, most importantly. If you want to only work from home, include that. Don't try and nab a job and then hope you can just make it work and convince them. No, do things like that. Say exactly what you want. If you are looking for just a temporary thing, just a contract, say that. If you are looking to do work that is different than what you're usually doing, say that. Explain your passions, explain your giftings, explain the things that really light you up, the things that make you want to go to work. We're here to help, but we can't help you if we don't know what you want. All you'll get is a bunch of people saying, hey, have you considered doing this? And trust me, I got plenty of that. When I first started being vulnerable, putting out that I was looking for things, I learned that lesson the hard way, that, people need to be directed. Otherwise, you will get a lot of things that you don't want. And trust me, all the recruiters that see your profile, it says open for work or open to work, or whatever it says, they will do their job. They have to reach out to a certain number of people every day, and you will be one of them. In fact, I will tell you that I do not even, when I'm looking for jobs on LinkedIn or looking for work, I do not put open to work on my public profile. It's something where the orientation is there. It's that you're looking, but putting it publicly, I think it's a mistake myself. You may have a different direction from other people, and they may be right. But in my mind, it's better to tell people than to show people in that particular. This is like one of the few times I'll ever say that. Usually I always want to show people and not tell them, but this is one of those times where it's better to tell and not show. Yeah, that's the reality. Let your network work for you by directing them on how to help you. And yeah, the other thing I'll say here is that maintaining a positive mindset is not always easy when you are looking for work. When you are in a position where you don't have income coming in, that can be daunting. And trust me, I'm sitting in that situation. I'm right there with you. I'm doing things I never would have imagined either having to or wanting to do. And I mentioned this before. I'll speak completely vulnerable with you. And this is like, I'm not coming from a position of having it all figured out, and learn lessons from me so you can earn your first million. It's not really me. It's not what I can do for you. I take that back. Actually, I think that is possible, but that's not always good. It's not always the best call. Trust me. I've been there over the course of many years of IT. I've had times of plenty and burned myself plenty in the process of reaching it. So there's times where I have a lot, times that I don't. Right now, I'm in a place where I don't have a lot at all. I've lived off of prior earnings for too long, and I went too far. It happens, right? You misestimate, not stay as vigilant as you need to, and next thing you're in trouble. And when you're unemployed, that can happen pretty fast. When you don't have an income and you can feel like a failure, feel like you've done something wrong, or sometimes you can feel like that can happen, have that going on. But the hard reality here is that you need to maintain a mindset that doesn't dwell on that. You have to really be someone where you can learn a new skill set This might be a time where you can figure out other things that makes possible for you. Don't spend all your time looking for work. Sometimes I've heard this advice from people, and I think it's accurate. It's good. Constantly being on, I guess you could say, it's not always healthy. Maintaining a mindset of not just positivity, but of abundance is super important. You don't want to just take the first job that comes to you. You don't want to just naturally just say, oh, yeah, well, I finally found something. Let's go. And that's going to be as good as I can get it. That's not always the best advice. What does make sense is being specific about what you want and being willing to accept that, and be careful about making compromises. First of all, modern IT is good about spotting that, about saying, oh, this person doesn't really want this. It's more subtle than you might think. You might say things like that and not realize it, or they'll just proactively exclude you from an opportunity because they can sense that you're not going to be the one to stick around. People generally hire people that want to stick around.
All right, future DJ here, I hope for you. And honestly, when it comes to these kind of times of uncertainty and not knowing if we're going to find a job or anything like that, it can be really tough. And so I encourage you to reach out to people. But I also wanted to add an additional encouragement that I didn't actually record originally, and I wanted to make sure this got in there. And that is what I was saying earlier about the time to be building that network and participating on things like LinkedIn is now. And that's absolutely true. And this is not difficult. It's not like you have to have some difficult like content strategy and try and do all those kind of things. What LinkedIn actually values more than anything right now is just commenting on people's posts. It values you participating, and that actually gets you exposure to other folks on LinkedIn. So in other words, building that network really is as simple as just participating with others and not being an island unto yourself and expecting that you need to come up with everything in order to be seen. That's not true at all. In fact, that I would say is a reason behind a lot of my recent successes is nothing to do with what I've been creating, but because I'm out there participating, and I'm finding that the result of that is that more people are seeing when I do have a challenge, when I do have something that's going on. And so the link in the description to the YouTube video that I recorded on this, and I hope that is something that's helpful to you as well. But you know what? If you want to do something to help me out, post this on social media, or find when I've posted on social media and comment on it. Let people know that it's okay to have listened to this. That actually helps out a great deal. And we say these cliche things like share this with a friend or make sure you subscribe and things like that. And you know what? It matters. It does. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, no, I don't need you to subscribe. If you want this to be successful, I need you to participate. I need you to actually take a moment out of your busy day and say, you know what, this was valuable to me and I want to tell somebody about it. Or this was valuable and I want to hear more of it. So I'm going to take that moment to subscribe so it makes sure to get it again. I just want to give back. That's my goal. So hope this is valuable to you, and we'll see you again on another episode of How to Thrive in IT. Okay, before we go, as usual, we have sponsors for podcasts, right? Well, this time I am my own sponsor, and we're doing something interesting here. I have written a book called Just Do This, A Simpler Way to Succeed in IT, and I want to get it in more people's hands, but I thought I'd take a moment and hand the microphone over to our deep dive team to have them explain more about this book from the perspective of a systems administrator or somebody that's in that kind of a role. So I hope you enjoy this. In the description, you'll find a link to be able to download a resource for you on this, and also give you the opportunity to purchase that book or an upcoming training course that would be very exciting. I don't have all the details yet, but get registered for that. It's a link in the book itself, but there'll be some enhancements there that are coming that I'm really looking forward to. And then also some ways you can be able to do this at work and have a resource for all of your peers as well. I don't know, exciting stuff. I get to rambling about it. Enjoy this little segment of a deep dive into Just Do This.
Hey Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. So today we're tackling this really practical book, Just Do This, a simpler way to succeed in IT. And our goal here really is kind of like the book's mission. It's about helping you, especially if you're maybe newer to IT services, get your career moving faster. Find that better work-life balance too.
Yeah, and I think what's great about it is it's not just theory, right? The author actually lived this stuff, went from like a really humble background to a six-figure consultant and speaker. So the advice, it's grounded, it's actionable, it comes from the trenches, basically. And like you said, if you're maybe on the service desk now or a sysadmin wondering, what's next, how do I move up? This deep dive is pretty much aimed right at you.
Absolutely. And it's refreshing because it's not about pushing these like super complex methodologies that sound impressive but often fizzle out. Instead, the author calls it a distilled, finely honed, and simplified method. Simple, but powerful. He even has this huge goal, right? Generating, $100 million in raises and bonuses through these ideas?
Yeah, it's ambitious, but it highlights the potential impact. And the absolute core idea, the shift in thinking it pushes for is, simplicity. It argues that complexity often just hides poor execution. Those massive 12-step processes.
Impossible to follow.
Exactly. Or methodologies that just seem to triple the meetings for, no real benefit. True success, the book argues, often comes from keeping things lean and focused.
That really hits home. Because the opposite is just as bad, isn't it? Operating with absolutely no plan.
Oh, it's chaos. Pure chaos. The book paints this picture of a small managed services provider. Staff working crazy hours, always putting out fires, terrified of what might break next, leads to burnout, or what he calls rage quit.
Yeah, I can picture that.
It's a tough spot, but it shows why having a repeatable, predictable plan is so crucial. Even if your team is kind of new, having that structure lets you punch above your weight.
Yeah.
You outperform disorganized experts just by having a clear path.
And speaking of clear paths, I like the distinction the book makes between best practice and leading practices.
Yeah.
That feels like a key takeaway for anyone trying to make recommendations.
It really is. Best implies there's only one right way, which is rarely true in IT, right? Things change, context matters. Leading practices is more flexible. It says, look, here are approaches that generally work well, widely accepted stuff, but it gives you room to adapt them to your specific situation. It's about guiding, not dictating.
Right. It feels less intimidating, more actionable, especially if you're, say, a junior admin trying to suggest an improvement. You're not claiming perfection, just pointing towards a better way.
Exactly. It empowers you to make solid recommendations without, over-promising.
Okay, so we get it. Keep it simple, focus on leading practices. How do we actually do that? The book lays out a methodology, right? A 4-phase thing.
Yep, a 4-phase iterative methodology. Understand, plan, change, and maintain. Now, these words might sound familiar, maybe obvious even, but naming them, structuring them, that's powerful. It creates consistency, and iterative is the key word there. It's not just step 1, step 2, done. Each phase kind of loops back and informs the next. It's a cycle.
Gotcha. So let's dive into phase 1, understand or assess. Sometimes it's called that. Now, this might sound like something only senior architects do, right? But the book says, no, it's fundamental for everyone, even on the service desk.
Absolutely fundamental. Understand is all about figuring out what's actually going on right now. Needs, systems, risks, configurations, the whole picture. And the book really drills down on this. You have to start by understanding the business layer, they call it. Ignore that, and you're building on shaky ground, like that analogy in the book.
Well, the building collapsing.
Yeah, trying to build a skyscraper without understanding the foundation. If you don't get the business need behind the tech request, your solution might just, fall flat.
Which brings up that critical question the author poses. Am I giving an unfounded opinion or irrelevant analysis that I would pay for myself? That's a good gut check.
It really is. It forces you to connect the dots. What's the real what and why here? Like that email migration example. The team thought it was about saving money.
But it was actually about mobile sales teams needing access.
Exactly. They missed the core business driver and the whole project suffered. So for you, maybe on the service desk when a ticket comes in, don't just fix the symptom. Ask why it matters to the user's job, to the business. That's where you start adding serious value.
Okay, that makes sense. So how do you get that deep understanding? The book mentions doing a day in the life study.
Yeah, and this isn't just about checking server logs. It's about watching people work. How do they start their day? What apps crash? What's slow? And crucially, what weird workarounds are they using?
The workarounds. Gold mines, right?
Total gold mines. They scream inefficiency or unmet need. A junior admin or even a sharp service desk tech who spots that and figures out a real fix, that's huge value right there. You're basically being an internal consultant.
Okay, but, people can get defensive if they feel like you're watching them, judging their work, like the Bobs from Office Space.
Yeah, the Bobs. Definitely want to avoid that vibe. The book's advice is simple but effective. Frame it as helping them. I'm here to help make your job easier, more effective. That changes everything. It becomes collaborative, not adversarial. And for junior folks, just being in those meetings, taking notes, maybe asking a few guided questions, that's amazing learning. You soak up business context.
Right, and understanding also means spotting risks. How does the book suggest we do that? Beyond just, experience.
So experience counts, definitely. Trust your gut sometimes. But also, study those leading practices we talked about. Leverage your network, borrow someone else's diploma, as the book puts it. Ask mentors. And a key tip, write risks down as you see them, but don't jump to solutions immediately. Just note them.
And distinguish fact from opinion, right?
Crucial. Can you quantify the risk? Is it costing time, opening a security hole, violating compliance? If not, maybe it's just your preference. And that's okay, but label it as such.
Makes sense. And then you prioritize these risks.
Yeah, strategic versus tactical.
Yeah.
What's the real impact? Users, data, money, maybe even external stuff like, a system failure impacting customers. And for every real risk you identify, there should be an actionable recommendation. Even if it's just, we need to talk to the vendor, it moves things forward.
And one last thing, and understand. Defining success up front.
Yes, before you even think about changing anything. What does done look like? What does success mean? And how will we test it? Get everyone to agree on that early. It works is not good enough. Needs to be specific, measurable.
Okay, solid foundation laid and understand. Phase 2 is plan. Designing the solution.
Right. This is where you map out the changes, document how it's all going to work. The main deliverable is that written design document. And a really interesting point here is documenting design decisions.
Why you chose this way instead of that way, even for small stuff.
Exactly. Even seemingly mundane things like how many virtual CPUs you gave a VM. Write down why. It seems like extra work, but it saves so much time and confusion later, especially during the change phase. It prevents those, what do we do now? Moments. It's about proactive thinking.
Thinking ahead and collaborating. Like that point about lab or dev environments, that seemed really critical.
Oh, massively critical. You absolutely cannot have your test environment linked to production in ways that create risk. No shortcuts.
Yeah.
Seriously, it can lead to disaster. You can't test properly, can't upgrade things independently, maybe even break production by accident. Just don't do it.
Got it. And the testing plan from the understand phase gets updated here too.
Yep. Flesh it out. Define who does what test, who signs off. Get specific. And for the documentation itself, think about structure. Layers, maybe? An executive summary is always good, helps non-technical folks grasp the value quickly.
And the book is pretty blunt about writing skills.
Yeah, practice is the only way to improve. No magic bullet. Find someone, maybe a mentor, who can give you honest feedback. Be consistent with formatting. Use tables. They make things clearer. Honestly, for anyone starting out, getting good at clear, concise writing, that's a skill that'll really set you apart. Big time.
Good advice. Okay, phase 3, change. This is where the rubber meets the road, right? Implementing the plan.
This is it, putting the plan into action. And risk management is still absolutely key here. Everyone needs to be clear on who's doing what depends on what. And again, the book just hammers this home. No cutting corners, no shortcuts.
So trying to just promote a test environment straight to production without rethinking it for prod workloads?
Exactly that kind of thing. It seems faster, but it introduces huge risks. Your professional integrity is involved here. Do it right.
And doing it right involves structured testing, which sounds like another great place for service desk or junior admins to contribute.
Totally. The book outlines a sequence. First, validation testing, does it technically work as designed? Then, a proof of concept, or POC. Show it to stakeholders. And definitely get service desk folks involved here. Let them play with it, find issues, get ready for user questions.
Smart. Prepares them for support.
Right. Then user acceptance testing, UAT, with a small group of actual users. Let them validate it meets their needs. And finally, before you go big bang, maybe a pre-production pilot. Roll it out to, say, 10-20% of users, lower the risk, catch any last-minute surprises.
That staged approach makes a lot of sense. Reduces the blast radius if something goes wrong.
Precisely. It builds confidence step by step.
Now, estimating time comes up here too. The book advises against trying to be a miracle worker. but under-promising.
Yeah, that whole under-promise, over-deliver thing sounds good, but it messes up planning and budgeting if your estimates are always sandbagged. It's better, the book argues, to be seen as a professional with a reliable process. Your estimates should be realistic, repeatable. That builds way more trust in the long run.
Trust and visibility. That's another point, making sure everyone can see what's happening.
Yeah, using shared tools, whether it's OneNote or proper project software, whatever works. The key is transparency. Everyone sees the progress, sees the roadblocks, knows where they can maybe jump in and help. Fosters teamwork.
And for our listeners on the service desk or in junior roles, communication during change is huge, isn't it?
Absolutely massive. You've got to communicate status updates regularly, honestly, before things happen, if possible. And crucially, explain the WHY. Not just we're updating the server, but we're updating the server to improve performance, and here's what you might notice. This is where you, in those roles, can shine. Create simple how-to guides, maybe even short videos for users or other support staff.
Teach them why it's happening.
Exactly. Empower them. That directly improves how well the change is received. Management notices that stuff. That's how you differentiate yourself.
Excellent point.
Right?
Okay, that brings us to the final phase, maintain. The book says this is often overlooked, but was actually a game changer for the author's career.
It really was. Maintain is continuous. It's about keeping things running smoothly after the project dust settles, and monitoring is a big part of it. The book breaks it down nicely: passive, manual, reactive.
But the goal is proactive monitoring.
That's the goal. Using smart tools, maybe even AI down the line, to spot deviations from normal before they become actual problems. Imagine getting an alert before users start calling the service desk. That frees up staff for more interesting, valuable work. Maintain also covers things like performance baselines, scalability testing, business continuity planning, backups, security, all that crucial operational stuff.
And the service desk is right in the middle of this, day to day.
Absolutely. Often staffed by newer folks, but they're the front line. And the book makes a great observation. Some of the best, most successful senior engineers and admins, they started right there, level 1, level 2 support.
And they work their way up by adding value, like applying these principles we've been talking about.
Exactly. It shows this stuff applies from day one. And for the service desk specifically, having clear escalation paths and good runbooks is key.
Run books, like step-by-step guides for common problems.
Yep. But importantly, while the system builders should have input, the procedures themselves should really be owned and refined by the support teams. They know what works in the heat of the moment. That builds confidence, reduces those just escalated tickets, and makes support smoother for everyone.
Okay, wow. We've gone through the whole methodology. Understand, plan, change, maintain. Simple concepts, but powerful when applied consistently. So let's bring it back to you, our listener. Maybe you're in the service desk, and maybe you're a junior admin. How does this framework help you move up?
Well, the book is super clear that this whole approach is designed precisely for that. To help anyone, regardless of current level, build a less stressful, more successful career path. It even outlines a typical progression which this methodology supports perfectly. You start at the service desk, key focus. Get enabled properly, start adding value by understanding the why, maybe documenting runbooks.
Then move up to junior or senior systems admin.
Right. Handling bigger tasks, updates, access, maintaining systems, using the understand and maintain phases daily. Next, maybe systems engineer. Now you're interpreting designs from architects, implementing changes, testing impacts, doing more complex documentation using the plan and change skills.
And eventually architect or leadership.
Yeah, where the focus shifts again. Now it's less about doing, more about explaining the WHY and how W, guiding strategy, mentoring others, having that heart of a teacher, as the book says.
And that leads to another killer quote from the book. A technical person that can communicate well is destined for greatness. Communication is the thread through all of this.
It really is.
It mentions participatory authority, guiding conversations without just talking over everyone, and how empowering others actually helps your career. That's big.
It is. And a simple tip: ditch the technobabble. Explain things like you would to your mom or dad. Simple, clear language. That's a skill.
So keep learning, keep practicing communication.
Definitely. The book suggests dedicating like 5-10% of your week just to staying current. Reading forums, news, whatever relates to your tech focus. Practice documenting, practice presenting ideas, find mentors. It all adds up.
And there's that practical tool for communication, the magic paragraph.
Yeah.
Sounds useful for anyone trying to make a case for a change.
Oh, it's brilliant. Super structured way to present a risk or recommendation. You state the problem name. what they're doing now, why that's maybe not ideal, what they should consider instead, and then back it up with research or links.
Concise, logical, professional. I can see how mastering that would get you noticed, even from a junior role.
Absolutely. It shows you're thinking strategically, not just reacting. And that ties into the final thought from the book, which is just so powerful for anyone interacting with users or colleagues. Teach a user why changes are occurring and what they can expect. They're much more likely to speak well of the change. Good management will take notice. When you get that promotion, email me.
Love it. What a great summary of the impact. So the big takeaway here really seems to be that IT success doesn't need to be overly complicated. This simplified, iterative approach, understand, plan, change, maintain, combined with solid communication and a commitment to learning, that's the path.
It really is. It's about consistent, thoughtful action. So maybe a final challenge for you listening. Think about just one thing in your current job. Could be a ticket that keeps popping up, a system that's always clunky, a process everyone hates. Just one thing. How could you apply just one principle from today? Ask why more deeply. Try to understand the real business need behind it. Document a leading practice for handling it. What's one small step you could take, maybe even today, to start improving that one thing using this mindset?
Fantastic challenge. Food for thought indeed. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, go out there and put some of this simple, powerful wisdom into action.